edition of American Bandstand is brought to you by an extremely talented and very, very good friend of ours comes to visit us today, Dick.
Yeah, it's been a while, Charlie, as a matter of fact. Let me show you an album that you're probably familiar with, the Bob Crewe Generation Music to Watch Girls By. That's only part of the story of this man. In a nutshell, let me capsule it here before I get over there, because he might be embarrassed if I said too many nice things sitting down next to him. He has been and still is a very accomplished painter. He's had his own showings. He writes music. He makes records. He produces recordings. He's an artist himself, that is a performing artist. I think he's done some literary writing in addition to music writing. He's about to become a filmmaker. He's one of the most successful music publishers in the world. He's about to invade Hollywood in several different enterprises. As a sideline, he happens to be a millionaire, which is very nice if you can accomplish it, and he's done it on his own. He's an extremely multifaceted man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Crewe. Robert, how are you? You know, as I give you a build-up like that, and I can see a lot of people saying, gee, you know, maybe I'd like to do that. How did all of this happen? Did you do it overnight?
Not quite overnight. No, I've been in it now for 10 years. This is my 10th anniversary.
How did you decide what you wanted to do? Because as far as I can figure out, you do everything.
Well, I don't do everything, but I try to do everything. I started out, wanted to be an architect. And I've always had a love for music. Somewhere along the line, I switched from architecture to building records.
All right, now, this is the part I wanted to ask you. You don't read nor write. I said write music. You do, I suppose, here. But you don't technically read music.
No, any more than a top line. I can read, you know, do, re, mi kind of thing. I cannot accompany myself. I dictate my arrangements to very talented arrangers, such as Hutch who is...
Well, how do you dictate an arrangement if you can't read music?
Well, he'll be playing the piano, dum, 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 and I say, okay, the saxophones go, bam, da 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 dum, bam, 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 and he writes that down. I say, the strings come in here and go, and he writes that down.
Isn't that amazing?
And I kind of know what I want to hear all together, although I couldn't put it down myself.
All right, let me skip over some of the people you've worked with. The Four Seasons, you still work with them?
Oh, yes, and Frankie Valli, Mitch Ryder.
What about Mitch? What's he like in a session? Is he difficult to work with?
He's one of the easiest and most beautiful people I've ever worked with. This is maybe, to me, it's a shock, you know, to be able to go into a studio and have an artist do it in one take. But Mitch Ryder is a one-take artist.
Is he going to be in movies? They tell me he is.
Mitch has already turned down 7 films. We now have the right property for him, and I'm happy to say that I'm producing his first film.
Right, now, if somebody wanted to do what you do, and I dare say it would be impossible to do them all, what one little gem of information or word of wisdom would you pass along to somebody who's young enough to still say, gee, I'd like to do what Bob Crewe does for a living?
I'll tell you a little story that might illustrate, I think, what I've tried to do with my life in general, not only in music. A wonderful friend of mine told me the story of Michelangelo when he did the fabulous statue of Moses. And being a temperamental man, people would come to him and say, well, how did you do that? And he would say, don't bother me, you know, I have no time for you. But when one of the Medici, one of his patrons, who was after all giving him his bread and butter, said, hey, Mike, you know, how'd you come out with that statue? He thought for a moment and said, well, I found a piece of marble large enough to encompass what I was thinking about and chipped away all the unnecessary pieces. And out came Moses. I think if you can do that, in general, kind of think straight ahead and clear away all the unnecessary trivia that seems to get in the way. Just don't let anything stop you. If you've got a good idea, go ahead with it.
Now, what I want to do is switch to something very practical. This record that, incidentally, Eddie, what I'd like to do is take that record and use it at the end of the half hour so I can skip over to the top 10 board because we're going to run out of time. This record has been out for a couple of weeks. Is it from an album?
It is the theme of the James Bond film coming out called You Only Live Twice.
We'll play that in about 10 minutes from now, Robert, and Godspeed. Good trip. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. All right, now, if I can run over here for a half second.